A recent report from Barna's Research shows that the church's reputation in specific areas like stepping up to help solve local problems is wavering among both teenagers and adults alike. And it seems that right now, 76% of Christians are at a point in their spiritual journeys where they want to help the church refocus on what's truly important. Well, that's something that we're going to talk about today with Pastor Rickie Bradshaw is what exactly is truly important to the church? What should the church be doing in this hour? We're going to talk about that and a lot more when we come back. Well, we're talking about some research today, Rickie, from the Barna Research Group. And while they say that the church's reputation has room for improvement and bridges that need to be built or strengthened, there is a silver lining, and that is that Christians are ready to help the church rediscover and refocus on what Jesus intended for it. Now is the time, they go on to say, to equip your congregation to harness this drive by considering the ways whole life discipleship is modeled and encouraged in your church. Without this kind of lived faith, the disconnect between Jesus' teaching and the life of Christians might continue to cause people to doubt the faith and to hold the church at a distance. Well, joining me today is Pastor Rickie Bradshaw. Rickie, you've been on the show many times before. I always like talking with you about this kind of topic because you've been a pastor for how long?
39 years now, this month.
Wow. So in 39 years, how many times have you wanted to quit? Did you quit track counting years ago?
I'm not telling.
You know, when I meet people, if they tell me they're a pastor's wife, I always say, I'm so sorry. It just seems like the hardest job on the entire planet to me.
It can be, but it's the greatest job on the planet.
Well, tell me. I bet you know what this research is talking about.
Well, I do.
Tell me. What do you think it's talking about?
Well, let's say from my experience as a pastor, I could be narrow-minded in my thinking, but like George Borner, he's looking at a large group of people and a large number of churches that he's done research with. You know, may it be a Baptist, Methodist, whatever. Well, I have the wonderful privilege of, for 25 years, being a church consultant. Yes, it's one stream, Baptist, but I've made my life available to consult with beyond just Baptist churches. So over the last 25 years, within the 39 years that I've been pastoring, I've been able to see it from a pastor of a local church and also pastors of denominations or in my city and around the world. And I come away with the same conclusion, that the church needs to reset. It needs to get back to its original first love, if you will. And so I've been really focusing on that. I've done some things that don't make sense to the average church-going person, but I did it so that we would not lose the edge.
Like, what does that mean? For example?
That could be changing from a program-based to a discipleship-based ministry. So that means that we are going to do more about discipleship than membership. We're really not focusing on people joining the church, but we're looking for people who want to go on a journey with Christ.
Okay, now that probably must make you pretty not popular among other pastors about if you're preaching, because isn't that the whole goal?
Well,
growing the church?
Well, no, it's not the whole goal. The whole goal is sending the church. The whole goal is discipleship, right?
Right.
And I see that the church programs are designed to teach you the Bible and give you some programs that will help you to be a much better church member, And that's not popular. I've done kingdom stuff in church where we would do training on marriage and training on parenting, training on being a happy single, training on raising great kids. You know, that's great, but it's not reproducible because it depends on me to make it happen for them.
Ah. Yeah. Well, according to this research we read, it says the church is ready to help I mean, the Christians are ready to help the church get back on track. So what do you think that means Christians are thinking?
Well, they're seeing how their life and the life of those around them are not making impact with the lostness in their world, first by seeing it through their own children. George Bonner also has a research that says that 10 out of 11 children who graduate from high school who've attended church with mom and dad do not return back to the church. So that's 10 out of 11. That's true in my church. And my church is saying, how do we change? How can we help the church to get better because we're losing our children?
So is it because the church is not answering the world's problems?
The children would say so. A lot of the children in his research, a lot of young adults say the church is not doing that, which is concerned about the social issues around it instead of the programs within it. And they can find better programs outside of church.
So how do we let's address the social problem, because, with the education system and everything, a lot of socialism has been introduced into our education system over many years. And so now the thinking is pretty much reminds me of the Bible verse that says, as each man did what was right in his own eyes. So it's like, I may not be a trans, but I think it's totally chill if you are. Or I may not want to have an affair, but if you like having an affair, hey, that's good for you, whatever. And so that's the thinking. So when you draw a line in the sand and say that's not biblical, then you're seen as a crappy person, judgmental, you're not very nice, because Jesus was all about loving. Right. So how do you handle these tricky social issues in your church?
That's the issue. That they think that the church is compromising to this kind of lifestyle.
And they think we should be compromising.
We should be compromising with these lifestyles and loving on these people, which I think the church has, in a sense, have lost that saltiness that encourages others to even want to consider change or to consider to listen. And the church doesn't know how to listen to the culture. Instead, if it wants to tell the culture that this is what we believe.
Oh, okay. So how do we handle that?
We need to listen to what they're talking about, the pain, and we haven't been equipped to deal with that.
Okay, so we listen to it, and then what?
Okay, let's get equipped to do the work of ministry. Instead of the work of ministry being parking lot attendants and choir stuff, that's not the work of the ministry. The work of the ministry, if you would read the scriptures, is about getting to know people. That's the big difference. Accepting their homosexuality or their transgenderism and all that stuff. That's not why I do this. Listen, my neighbors, all of them are different than me. And when I go to meet them to talk about Christ and all that, they think I'm a bigot, right? And I'm talking about you changing, not about Christ being Lord in your life, loving on you like he loved on me. I don't even know what their pain is, but yet I want to invite them to receive Christ, and wasn't at the pain level because I'm not listening.
Oh, now this is the bad way. You're talking about this is the way people do it now.
Right. This is how we invite people to church. That's our goal, right?
Oh, I see.
Our goal is not to become friends with lostness. Yeah. That's what Jesus did. He didn't accept it, but he was a friend to sinners. Have you ever taken some soup to a transgender person when they got sick? Because they are going to get sick. Have you ever taken some gumbo to your neighbor next door, who is what you would call, from African-American perspective, he's a redneck, right? And every time you tell him that you want to talk to him about Christ and all that, he says, I don't want to talk about church. I didn't mention anything about church. He's hurt by church, right?
Yeah.
And then when I get in my car and he sees me Sunday morning going to church, where you going, Rick? You going to church? Ha, 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 right?
Yeah.
So he gets sick. I have to wait. See, I have been trained.
Okay.
I have to wait. I'm praying that I will get an opportunity to share the gospel with him. I'm going to get an opportunity to love those who oppose me. And he gives me an opportunity, and I see it. He's sick as a dog. He's got stitches down his chest where they've opened it up to do heart surgery. He's got these clamps and he's running around, right? My wife says, I think we're going to make some gumbo and we're going to send it to him. Can you take it to him for me? And a big old pot of gumbo with shrimp and crabs.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
He's not going to turn you away. Not in Texas.
And not only that, but she's got some cornbread that only an African-American can fix. And I'm telling you, it make you want to go to church and stay there.
When you invite me over for
you just come over anytime. Because I got a secret.
Yep.
She said, Rickie, you're going to church 42 years ago. She said, Rickie, if you don't go to church, I'm not cooking on Sundays. Guess what? Yeah. I haven't missed church in 42 weeks. And then 39 years ago, I got called to pastor church. Now, I didn't get saved because of the cooking. But what I'm getting at is this, that she loved on him. I knocked on the door. Oh, hey, Rick. I said, hey, guy, I understand you've been sick. And, yeah, I'm kind of slow getting to the door here. I said, look, I got some food for you, some gumbo. Really? He tore that pot up. And he called.
Sopped it up with the cornbread.
Oh, my goodness. And he began to just kind of understand that I'm a neighbor, that I'm there for him. So when they had problems with their kids that wanted to commit suicide, he said, can I come see you, Rick? I need to talk. Yeah, come on in. Wow. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road with this. My congregation is 99.9% black, and that particular Sunday, we were doing hip-hop Sunday, okay? Now, that's... Okay. And my wife is going, how long is this going to last? I said, hang tight, honey. So, make a long story short, I come home from church one day before this service. I come home one day. I parked a car out front. He comes running outside, my next door neighbor, no shirt on, with shorts, and you can see the stitches and where the clamps were. And he's white as a sheet of paper.
Is this a white guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's running out. This is the redneck.
Because I was going to say if it was a black man, white as a ghost, I was going to say, well.
Well, he would have done it. He would say to me, I'm just old redneck, just like that. And he drank beer, and he always offered me beer. And I said, I don't drink beer anymore. He said, oh, you used to drink it, preacher? I said, yeah, I got away from it because Christ saved me and delivered me from it because I was an alcoholic. You were an alcoholic? I said, yeah, I was. You pastoring a church? I said, yeah. So he's learning a little bit about me as I learn about him. I'm not judging him.
Yeah.
Because he's letting me know up front I'm a redneck.
So anyway, he comes running over.
Okay.
Without shirt on.
He comes running over. And he says, hey, Rick, I need to talk to you. I said, I'll be right over. So I go over. He said, my wife is in the bedroom and she's locked the door and she won't come out. And she said, I ain't coming out until Rick comes over here. He's probably the only one that's going to believe me. Believe what? She said her dead daddy stood in front of her bedroom, her bed, and said, you need to call that colored guy next door, and he going to tell you how to get saved, because if you don't, you going to hell.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, are you serious?
I'm serious. And so I said, she want to do what? She said, she's nuts, Rickie. Her brother's a pastor down there in the south part of Texas, and she called him and said, I need Rick to come over. My daddy told. She said, don't you call that black guy. He gonna think you nuts. She said, I'm not nuts. I'm telling you, it was daddy. She locked herself up in that room. So he goes and tells Rick's here. Oh, she comes out. She's sweating. Her hair is straight. She's crying. She said, you here? Do you believe my story? I said, yes, I do. Like that. She said, you do? I said, yeah, I think God can get your attention that way. I do. She said, what does this mean? And I said, I have not been a Christian all my life. Can I tell you my story? I told my story. Yeah. And she said, I want that, Rickie.
Oh, wow.
And he's over there while she's talking. He's going, she's nuts. Yes. And guess what?
What? He got saved too.
He came over, weeping, said, I want that too, Rick. What do we do? Do we go to church? No, not right now. What you need to do is get on your knees with me and just surrender all to Christ. And they did. So they said, what do we do next? I said, well, you want to get baptized? What's that? You got to get in the water. Oh, yeah, I've been baptized 10 times. I said, but this is the real one. He said, okay.
Right.
I said, when you get ready, you let me know. I didn't invite him to church or anything. He's watching my life. He's watching me raise my kids for 10 years.
Yeah.
It took that long. He's watching me.
Wow.
I'm discipling him by watch. And I'm loving on him when he gets sick. Things go bad. His son wants to commit suicide. I go over to his son's high-rise apartment in the Galleria just to meet with him. He said, you met with my son. Thank you, Rickie. I said, yeah, I prayed with him. You did? He never killed himself. He became a Christian. The daughter practiced Wicca. She became a Christian.
Wow.
How you like that, right?
So what happened to mom and dad?
Mom and dad, so 2 Sundays later, they called Dale and they told Dale.
Your wife.
My wife. We coming to your church. Don't tell Rick. It's Hip Hop Sunday.
Okay.
And it's banging, and my son-in-law, he's got that stuff going. My wife said, how long is this going to last? Now, the usher, the lady at the door, the greeter, she's trying to get my attention. You got guests, and you need to come here because they're a little bit different than everybody.
Yeah.
So I go to oh, it's you. Yeah, Rick, we came to church with you. Gonna get baptized. I said, really? So he came in, he sat there behind me. I introduced him to the church, and it was so loud. I said, oh, Lord. He said, Rickie, I can't stand the music. Can I go home, please? I said, yeah. I said, I'll come by. I said, you want me to baptize you in a tub? You can do that? I said, yeah. I'll find you a church where that will be. I got some friends, man. I got friends all over the city. When he died, a year later, he was a member of a church. She was going to Lakewood with a friend, and we were okay. I'm not about church. It's about being a disciple.
Yeah.
Right? So we have Bible studies in the backyard, all that good stuff. We just sharing about. They were learning about Christ and learning how to love people around them. They had some difficulties with the family, and they had to straighten all that out. They hated her, and on her side, they hated him. Yeah. That kind of stuff. And they wind up being. He died eventually. And his wife told the family that Rickie is going to do the funeral. And his brother, who's a pastor, came over and said, can I visit with you? He sat down in a chair at my home on the day of the funeral. And he says, I just want you to know how grateful I am that my brother got saved because of you.
Wow.
Our family is honored that you will do the funeral for him today.
Wow.
Wow, yeah. You see, that's a difference than being a church member and a disciple maker. Mm-hmm. And so I teach my congregation how to do that. So they say, you want them to join our church? I say, not necessarily. Right now, just play it by ear. Let them come to your church. They may not like it here because we got some traditions, I say, but invite them to your home. Share with them what I said in the context of your home. Do what I do with gumbo. Do what I did on the backyard of their. Just do what I did, no matter who they are. Transgender, it doesn't matter. Jesus was a friend. It wasn't about going to the synagogue.
Yeah.
It was about life where you are.
Do you feel like most of your church actively disciples?
No. It's challenge. They have to want to do that. Now, do I have some that do? Oh, yeah. And they make up for the ones that do not. People have been baptized by them. I don't baptize anybody. Jesus didn't baptize anybody because he sent them to go do the work. So anyway.
So what do you think the dissatisfaction is then among church members that want to see the church change?
I think the dissatisfaction, I'm glad you asked that question, is what I just told you. They're not seeing it. They're not even empowered to do it.
So do you think there's this hunger for something, but we don't even know what it is we're hungry for?
Well, I think we assume that because the church is declining and our kids are not coming to the churches and the culture is not embracing, they're now weirdos and you this evangelical person, you people don't understand. Even in the marketplace, that's how people talk to them. So they are thinking that if we would just change the church, I'm talking about the institution.
Well, you know what I think, and this is not going to be popular at all, but I think it's just time for the church to quit worrying about this building and these four walls. And I think the church needs to be us as believers, just out in the world doing our thing,
right.
loving.
Right. Right. And some
The
folks
church house has got a bad reputation.
it has a bad reputation, just anything with a cross on it.
Mm-hmm.
So what we had to do, it was not by my choice. I was concerned about these same issues.
Mm-hmm.
If I would go to my church on Sunday morning, the kids that grew up in Sunday school are
Yeah.
not there, except my kids.
Mm-hmm.
They're there. I asked them why. What's up? They said, well, we talked to them. They said, they don't live it out, Dad. The ones that you have in leadership, they don't live it out in the world in which they live in. And when they came to our house, they saw you and Mom live it out. Well, I said, that's intentional, but that's the lifestyle I would hope that they would be doing. I said, no, it was different at home. And then they talked to us about this, Dad. All my kids, except for one, she's in Tyler, Texas, and she had to go to Tyler to get saved. And now she's like full blown. Her and her kids, they go to church in Tyler, Texas, which is a 4-hour drive from Houston. Mm-hmm. And all the rest of them live within a 5-mile radius of our home.
How many kids you have?
I had 7.
And one
2
pastor?
deceased.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And the other 5, the other 4, all of them are members of that church still today. They're in their late 30s and mid 40s. And all of my grandkids, all 15 of them except 3, or 3 in Tyler, Texas, all of them are there on Sunday mornings. And the question is, how did you do that? I said, what do you mean? How did I do that? I lived it out. I made terrible mistakes. And when I did, I get to the middle of the living room floor and ask my family to forgive me. I just do what Christ told me to do. But I started off like you. When my kids messed up, I told them, come sit up front. You're not going to embarrass us. Mm-hmm. I did that. I had to apologize to them about that.
Really?
Yes, I did. And I said to them, you're going to have to have your own faith eventually. You're riding on me right now. Mm-hmm. But eventually, you're going to have to make a decision. And I like for that decision to be made at a certain time. And it's why you're at home, so we can struggle with it. And that decision is not now. That decision is when you get to the what we call the age of accountability, is when you know that what you've done is wrong, not just against me, but against the Savior. That's when you're ready.
Rickie, I want to know, how did you get to this way of thinking? Because is it fair to say most churches are concerned more about church growth and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I would think so. And let me just say this: as church growth is not a demon, but the motivation to grow bigger and to be better and to make it more sharper
and to have the seeker friendly stuff.
Yes, where you're kind of normalizing.
Don't offend anybody.
Yeah, don't want to offend and all that, and the lack of accountability. You can't have a ministry of accountability at this level of discipleship. Teach them to obey, obedience-based discipleship, and keep members, because you're trying to use the church as the means of saying, this is it. This is the place where we're going to make sure your life is going to be okay. You're going to be. This is where you can make life happen. And listen, everybody can't do this, but I had to make a conscious decision, and I'm looking for pastors in our city right now that God's calling. Because we've seen it and we're smelling it. We're seeing what George is talking about. And George interviews us. And he says, oh, yeah, there's another guy said that in Atlanta. And I was led by the Lord to sell our building. We grew to 600 people, and I was the next large church in my community.
Okay.
And things started happening that didn't make sense.
Like what?
They wanted better church. And we couldn't do it.
What do you mean they wanted better church?
Church models were very prevalent back then. Uh-huh. Everybody was growing to be mega, and I had to grow to be mega too. I wanted to, but I didn't have what it takes to be mega. I didn't have the money. I didn't have the personnel to make that happen, and my air conditioners wasn't working. I was in a very poor community. And I said, okay, we got 600, and I don't see the reality of Christ. So we start praying, right? And so the Lord led me to pray with 8 people, and we did that for 30 days straight, crying out to him. And we didn't do it in the facility. We went to an apartment that the church owned to take care of ex-offenders coming out of our ministry. We would make sure they have housing. And make a long story short, it went to about 250 people meeting every morning from house to house to house to house to house for 3 years.
What?
Yeah.
What do you mean? You
Every
sold
day.
the church or what? No, you still had the
At this
church.
time, we hadn't sold it, but we saw what happened in those houses. We saw at 5 a.m, it got so big that we had to start a 4 o'clock in the morning meeting, a 5 o'clock in the morning meeting, and a 6 o'clock in the morning meeting.
Wow.
That went on for 3 years.
Just prayer.
Just prayer. It went on for, and sometimes the meetings would go past 7 o'clock, past 4, 5, and we had 3 different houses. And every day it was a different house. People would come to my house.
Okay.
Seriously. So we found the reality of the gospel in those houses. We showed up on Sunday morning in our 600 capacity seating, right? And we had church, right?
Yeah.
And we were just da-da-da-da-da-da. We still had programming and all of that. But where the life was happening and where people were getting saved is in their homes.
Yeah.
And it just became a reality that we can do without a building, because I was being pressured to do so. We need a building so that we can continue to grow. We need to relocate and go to Katy, another community. We need to, and I said, let's relocate. And I'm standing in the pulpit at a mega church using their facility to show everybody what it would look like for a banquet for a facility funding project, a new facility project, right? We got balloons on the table.
Yeah.
We got envelopes on the table. We got John Maxwell's ministry leading this charge for us. We paid $21,000 for them to do that. And I'm standing there, and the Lord speaks to our hearts. You know, he does speak.
Yeah.
I'm standing in front of everybody, and everybody was excited. They saw the canvas of the new building that we had kind of painted up, you know. Wow, it's going to have a bowling alley.
Yeah.
It's going to have a gym, whatever. You know, we were going to just have programming that we can grow, and it was going to be great. And the Lord said something to me. He says, if you leave, I am not going. I said, who said that? If you leave, I am not going. So I asked the church that Sunday afternoon, I said, can the choir do another selection? I need to talk to the elders. And I said, guys, I don't know where I'm getting this from, but our church has been focusing on reaching the unreached, and hundreds and thousands of people are coming to A-Leave that are unreached people groups. I know that for a fact. And God wants us to stay. And we might lose everything, and our elders were non-American. They were Nigerians. And they said, we feel the same thing, Pastor.
Oh.
Yeah.
Why couldn't you build a building in A-Leaf?
Well, that's the whole point. To do what we had to do, we had to use the money for something else.
Oh.
Yes. So we did the banquet, we did everything, and we said to them, oh, listen, let's do this. Let's raise money today, though, and the Maxwell guy looked at me like, are you kidding me? I spoke to him. And we raised money to do missions that day, to plant churches. We planted 140 congregations.
You're kidding.
No. 40.
All in the Houston area?
No, somewhere around the world, in Brazil and in Hiramatsu in Japan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we also partnered with the church in the Baptist Union in Moscow, in Russia, and also in Lisbon. We did one there too. All of a sudden, we started getting connections. And then we started planting churches here in Houston that were reaching out to Spanish people, Spanish-speaking people, and Africans that were coming from Ethiopia and Kenya, right here in Houston.
So what happened to your 600 people?
They wanted more programming. So we gave them permission. We said, we know that this is not going to be for everybody over time. And we said, we're going to wait on the building thing. And and continue to follow the Lord Jesus in reaching the nations that are coming to Ailey, somebody has to do it. And then eventually, guess what?
What?
The YMCA of my community gave us a nod and said, hey, can you come into the Y and start a church, please? I said, wow, we would love to do that. So I took this
So you sold your building.
We sold the building, and we took that money to do missions, okay? And we went into the Y, and they didn't charge us a dime because the
And
Y...
how big's your church at this point?
75.
70. So you lost 500 people.
Not necessarily lost.
Well, I meant they don't go to your church anymore.
They don't go to our church anymore. And
Wow.
the YMCA has not charged us a dime. And they've asked us to help them start churches in the YMCA in Houston. And they've asked me to be the chair of the Pastors Network across Houston.
Which has taken them back to their original mission.
Mission,
Because
exactly.
they were originally Christian ministry.
Right, exactly. And
How
here
interesting.
And yes, so we didn't know God had this in mind, but we obeyed. We obeyed.
But now, Rickie, did you sit in the dark sometimes at home going, what have I done?
You bet. I would get up in the middle of the night and go to the church and get on my knees, and I would ask him, what have you done to me? And he says, go home, go to sleep, and I'll show you. That's when I went to the YMCA, and I'm drinking water, and the executive director said, Pastor Bradshaw, what do you do? Everybody in the Y says, all you do is run your mouth more and you pump iron. I said, what do you mean by that? She said, they like you. You talk about Bible and about your life and God life. And she said, I would love to have a church like that. Could you help us? I said, you got it. And so 4 months later, we were there.
How did your congregation treat you when you sold the building and did all of this?
It took them a while. Most of them were used to the building. We had a building that seats 600. And we had a building that had 12 toilets in it,
Yeah.
We had a chapel that seats 250s, how we started churches in the chapel. And we had 5 offices upstairs.
Yeah.
And we had room for programs and things like that. But the church started declining way before that. The Lord was really serious. They were going to this other community. They were leaving. Everybody was moving because the community was becoming international. The street signs were changing. They had English, Mandarin, and Vietnamese.
Wow.
Yeah, right next to our church. So we stayed, and we did decline. They found churches further west. And I was asking God, what have you done to me? I did. I was really struggling. These are people that I loved.
Yeah.
These are people that I rescued, and God used us to rescue them out of crack, rescue them out of prisons. They were becoming now upperly mobile. They have got families, and they wanted programming.
So how'd you make peace with all this?
I obeyed and found joy in obedience and watching him do things that I couldn't have done. The planning of those churches and what he's doing right now, because the culture is changing. There's a reset on the church today in America. And to see the YMCA saying, the Greater Houston Y, saying we want to reset, we want Christian emphasis and Christian principles in our lives.
So what's brought the YMCA to come full circle back around to their original mission that they abandoned years ago?
They probably saw the research too about the lack of volunteerism with the church, that kind of thing.
Maybe somebody within the Y's had a heart change.
I think it was. And they had a board of business leaders that said, we'll fund it. Yeah, they would fund it. Here in Houston, they said, we want this. These are Christian leaders.
Wow.
Yeah. So things are changing in Houston for the better, and I hope that there's a way that we can communicate this, because this will cost you everything. I've lost relationships behind some decisions I had to make. My kids, my wife, they said it's the best thing that has ever happened to us. Why? Because they see more dad.
What is the best thing that ever happened?
This idea of selling the building and moving out and become a part of the Y. One of my daughters is a regional director with the Y, and another one works the front desk. And some of our members now are leaders in the YMCA. So we've made significant impact from a silent perspective, just living life. Just living life.
Very interesting. Well, great. Well, I enjoyed that conversation, Rickie, and kind of getting the inside scoop in a pastor's life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
To make this change, the pastor's life will have to change.
Well, I think God is definitely, God is stirring. You can see it. God's stirring everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm very excited. Every day's Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Every day's
Every
Christmas.
day.
Something is happening every day.
Oh, my goodness.
I think we are in the third great awakening for sure.
And we are seeing a harvest that we have not sown.
Yeah, amazing.
We're partnering with Christ just to reap that harvest. He's bringing them to us.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I'm going to look forward to our next conversation.
Very good.
So we thank you all for joining us today on the Sandra Hartstone Show, and we will see you next week.